All right, everyone. I'm Caitlin Moore. I'm the financial literacy manager at UBT. And today we're going to go through financial aid and loans and scholarship and things like that. Really, it's not to tell you what to do, it's just kind of to go over your options in case you were wondering down the line. And there's some things that you should probably start looking into now, being a student in high school, because it will benefit you later on. So I do have my chat box up. It might disappear for a little bit, but if you do have questions, feel free. I try to be as thorough as possible with this presentation. So hold off on the questions until I ask if you have any, just because I probably will answer your question. But just so you know, it is a little overwhelming with the amount of information that's in here because loans and scholarships and grants and stuff are very confusing. So this recording will be sent out back to PALS so that you can refer back to it. It's hosted on YouTube, so you can always get back to it. Okay. So let's get going. So I'm going to go through a bunch of definitions. It's really important that we learn the language for what we're talking about when we talk about scholarships. So I'm just going to go down the line and really explain through this as we go. So a scholarship is a grant or a payment made to support a student's education, usually awarded based on academic or other achievement. A scholarship does not need to be repaid. So let's say you won an academic contest and you won $1,000 scholarship. The company or whoever is giving away the scholarship will pay your school directly and give them $1,000 in your name. So it really, usually scholarships do not pass through your hands. So you'll never see the money. It just goes directly into your student account to pay for various things. Sometimes there are scholarships out there that will pay for books or pencils or paper, and they'll give you cash or they go through another way. But scholarships don't have to be repaid. So if you win a scholarship or are awarded a scholarship, that's your money. It's yours. You don't have to pay it back. The same goes with a grant. So a grant is a sum of money given by the government or another company or entity for a particular person. So scholarships and grants are very similar in a sense, but grants just kind of come out a different way. So every year or every semester, you'll have to fill out what's called the FAFSA. And this it's a determinant to decide whether you can pay for a certain amount of college or your parents or guardians can. This is like a government form that you have to fill out no matter where you go to school. They'll also determine through that if you're eligible for grants. So they're giving away free money to help you out. They're saying because you're at a certain threshold with your finances, we're going to give you some money to help you during school. So let me give you an example of this. When I was in college, I was single, but my parents, I was still dependent on them. So I would fill out the FAFSA, but not get anything back because my parents made a certain amount of money and I wasn't eligible. But then halfway through college, I got married. And so when I filed the FAFSA again, and I said I was married, it went by our income, which was very low. And so they granted me some money. They're saying, because you're now at this threshold, we're going to give you some money to help out. So those grants went towards my education, went right into my student account, or they reimburse me back if school is already paid for. So it was kind of nice to be at a lower income in college because I got more grant money, and grants you do not have to pay back. They're just granting you a wish in a sense, and you get some money. So think of it that way. So scholarships and grants do not have to be paid back. Now, sometimes scholarships, depending on how companies categorize them, might have to be paid back through working for a company, like a certain amount of time that you have to be there. And we'll get to that. So scholarships do not usually have to be repaid, but sometimes, depending on the qualification, you have to repay it with your time. A Pell Grant is a federal grant awarded to students for, let me get rid of my boxes here, post-secondary education, so colleges, universities, and career schools, awarded based on financial need. Funds do not need to be repaid. So like I said, when I filled out the FAFSA, when I was married, we made less money than when I was a dependent on my parents. My parents made more money. And so than my husband did. So when I got married, I was in a lower income threshold. So they awarded me extra Pell Grants. So money I did not have to repay. Federal loans. There's different types of loans if you're going to go to college and take out student loans. There's federal loans and there's private loans. And I'm going to talk through some of these. So federal loans are given by the federal government. Okay. You take out a loan from the government and they pay the school for your education. This is a loan. So there's an interest rate involved that will be charged to your account, and you don't have to pay on it when you're in school, but you do when you're out of school. So there is federal loans. WorkStudy. This is a different type of way to earn money or pay for school. It's basically part-time employment from the school. And most schools have work-study programs, meaning you're going to work a certain amount of hours for them and they're going to pay for some of your college. Sometimes they put money in your pocket, you still get a paycheck, but it's extra expenses that they're paying for. It's kind of like you're putting in the work on their behalf and they're benefiting from it, so they're going to pay for your school. Work-study is usually based off of financial needs. So most schools have this, and it's something you should definitely ask about immediately if you're interested in a school. What's your work-study program? Because you could have a job and have school partially paid for by this work-study and never really even have to leave campus. So it's a really beneficial program to be in. Ask about what the work-study requirements are. Sometimes they'll say if you make or your parents make over a certain amount, then you won't be eligible, or you sign up and they just give the positions to certain students first that need it more than others. So it's a really great deal because you will likely earn an hourly wage, plus you'll earn money towards school. So I would definitely ask for that. Work-study programs, there's limited amount of these, but each department, so if you're in the psychology department or communication department or something like that, they will have a certain amount of these jobs. So if you're interested in getting some work experience within your field of study, this is also a great way to earn money, but get experience in the field that you're interested in. Private loans. So like we said, we have government loans and private loans. Private loans are loaned money from a financial institution or a state loan program or non-federal institution. So basically, anyone that's willing to loan money for your student loans that's not a part of the government. So a bank. Banks typically don't do this very much anymore, but there's institutions out there like Navient. Navient is a private company that will loan money for student loans specifically. So that's a private loan company. And there's different types of loans that go into this, and we're going to talk about that, but we're just talking about the entities of federal and private loans. They both offer loans for school. They pay it directly to the school on your behalf. And if you take out a little bit of extra, they might send you a check so that you can have some money in your pocket to pay for school expenses. So some of the loans that are within one of these two, the private or the federal, a Parent Plus loan. A Parent Plus loan is a federal student loan. So it comes from the feds, available to parents of dependent undergraduate students. So if I'm in school and I'm still a dependent, meaning my parents are claiming me on their taxes because they're paying my way, or I'm not married yet or not on my own, they can get a loan for my education in their name. So basically they're taking out a loan. They're saying Mark and Ruthie, which are my parents' names, are taking out this loan on behalf of Caitlin. The loan goes to the school. And then when I'm done with college, my parents technically are supposed to pay it back. That's how it would work. They're getting a loan in your name. My parents, on the other hand, took out loans and are making me pay back. So be careful for that. It's usually what happens. But it is helpful because a lot of times when you are young, as you are in college, you won't qualify to take out a loan by yourself. You might need a cosigner, your credit isn't that high, things like that. So a Parent Plus loan allows your parent to take out a loan in your name so that you can get through college. The FAFSA, that's what I was talking about. It's the free application for student aid. Most, if not all, schools require that you fill this out. It just tells the school what kind of aid you're eligible to get, whether it's a grant or a scholarship. There's various things that they want on there. It's mainly tax information, income, parents' information, things like that. If you're on your own, nobody's claiming you as a dependent, that's when you get the most money from the FAFSA. So you have to fill this out, and it's at studentaid.gov, but most schools will directly tell you to do this. A Stafford loan or a direct loan. This is a fixed rate federal loan. So we've talked about this before if you were on these webinars, but fixed rate means it's an interest rate, that never changes. It's the same amount for the life of the loan. So a fixed rate is always good to get when you get any sort of loan, car loan, home loan, anything like that. Go for a fixed rate because it never changes. So whatever the rate is today, and I sign up for my student loans, that will never change, even if the interest rates go up or down. The benefit is this is that you always know what you have to pay every month. A variable rate varies. So every month it may be higher, it may be lower. And that's harder to pay off because if I'm paying a car loan of $200, but I have a variable rate, next month it might be $245, and the next month it might be $285. That's a big gap, but I never know what I have to pay. So a fixed rate just says whatever the rate is today, when I sign up for the loan, that's what I will pay even 10 years from now, which is really nice. So that's a federal loan. Federal loans are the best to try to get for student loans simply because they don't require as much eligibility, and there's a lot of better repayment plans, and we'll talk about that. A subsidized loan, that's another type of loan that you can get, is to help students with financial needs. While in school, the government pays the interest. So you take out a loan for school, you're not paying on this until you graduate, but you're earning interest off this. So somebody's still loaning you the money and you're gaining interest. So you might take out $20,000, but by the time you graduate, the loan may be $25,000 because we've earned interest. The interest has just been put right back into the loan. A subsidized loan means the government's going to pay on your interest. So you take out $20,000, there's a 5% interest. When you go to pay this off, you only owe $20,000 because the government has paid that 5% interest on your behalf. There's a lot of stipulations to get that. It's not for everyone. Not everyone's going to be eligible for that. Usually this is for students that have more financial needs. Unsubsidized means there's no financial need is required. Basically, anybody can get it. Interest must be paid while the student is enrolled in school. So I take out $20,000. They're charging me 5% interest. While I'm in school, I have to pay that 5% interest, whatever that is. Every month I have to make a payment on that. It's less risky for the lending company. So pretty much anyone can get an unsubsidized loan, which is not great if you're a full-time student and don't have a good job. It's very hard to make payments on student loans while you're in school, especially if you're in charge of your own bills. Maybe you're living on your own, have a car payment, things like that. Okay, so individual. Oh, we're going to talk about scholarships. So there's different types of loans, but there's also different types of scholarships. So we're going to move into that. So let's talk about different types of scholarships. I would encourage you to start looking at scholarships now. You can earn scholarships throughout high school. You can earn scholarships after high school, even if you're not in college yet. You could be earning scholarships for various things. And there's a lot of things that people don't think about when they think about scholarships. And I'm going to give you some ideas of what to look for and how it works. Excuse me. So there are individual scholarships. So a lot of times these individual scholarships are career focused. So if you want to be a doctor, or a nurse, or a dentist, and you hit these certain qualifications, you can apply for a scholarship. A lot of times you'll see these smaller ones saying, oh, if you're going to go to this school, we'll give you $1,000. My undergraduate school that I went to, I see stuff all the time online for them. And they're like, sign up now and win a $10,000 scholarship. And though that may seem like a lot, it was a really expensive school. So I just get mad at that. But they're just saying, even if you come here to this school, we will give you $10,000 towards your education. So that's an individual scholarship. It's there for a reason. A lot of times they'll offer scholarships because maybe that field of study needs more people in it. So they'll say, hey, if you'll come be a dentist, we'll scholarship you because we just need more dentists in this area, something like that. So look out for that. Another type of scholarship is a career exchange. So this is money given in exchange for work. So the National Health Service Corps gives full ride scholarships in exchange of 2 years of service. So if you go into a specific healthcare career and you go through the National Health Service Corps, they will literally pay for your education if you then work for them for 2 years. That's a pretty good deal. There's a lot of businesses out there, including UBT, that if you've worked there a year or 2 years or 3 years, they'll pay for ongoing education. So I could essentially at UBT go back to school and get another bachelor's or a master's, and they'll pay for it, but it has to be within the field of study. So I, working at a bank, can't go get a psychology degree and get them to pay for it, but I can go and get a business degree and they will pay for it a certain amount every year. So, but they'll say if you quit after your degree or before 5 years of service, you have to pay us back. So you have to look at those stipulations, because you can't just go get a job and get school paid for and leave. Oftentimes they'll ask you to have either worked there for a certain amount of time or work there after you get your degree for a certain amount of time. Otherwise you have to pay them back. But it's great because I have a job already. It's paying me a paycheck. They're paying for school. I could work here for a year or two. That's fine. That works out for me really well because they're footing the bill for my education. Athletics. So I think this is probably the most common that most people know about, is an athletic scholarship. If you excel in a sport, colleges will recruit you over and say, hey, if you play this sport for us, we'll give you a full ride scholarship plus some to just come play for our school. I think most people know about this. And the ones that do oftentimes get these scholarships are just really naturally born athletics, or they've been playing for years and years and years. These are the people that are good at what they do. And they're going to earn a full ride because of their athletic ability. Not all athletic scholarships are full rides. It could just be a portion, depending on the sport or how committed you are, things like that. But athletic scholarships are definitely out there. And I think they're the most widely known. There are merit scholarships. This means that if you are the best of the best in a certain area, academics, volunteerism, skill, talent, dedication. So there's a lot of scholarships out there that you can apply for that say, for example, if you volunteer, if you've put in a ton of volunteer hours, maybe throughout high school, and you can prove it, it's documented, they're going to say, hey, they'll ask you to write an essay. And they'll say, where did you volunteer? How many hours and why? Maybe they'll ask you a question about how it impacted your life. You know, if I've given 5 years of volunteering 20 hours a week at the animal shelter and I want to be a veterinarian, that's really going to work in my favor because I have experience now working with animals, and it's going to help that career field that I'm going into. So merit scholarships definitely should look into those if you are the best of the best, especially the volunteer thing. If you've got a unique skill or dedication, things like that. Scholarships come from everywhere. There's people out there that start foundations just to give away their money for scholarships. There's billions and billions of dollars that go untouched every year because people don't know to look for them. So if you have some unique talent, look into what scholarships are out there. There's other scholarships based off religion, ancestry, heritage, areas of study, adoption, foster care, your financial situation, contests, everything. For those of you who have been state wards, been in foster care or adopted, there is a lot of educational opportunity out there for you that you could basically get college paid for you. There's a lot of places here in Lincoln that can connect you to that. They'll pay for your college. They'll pay for your supplies. They'll pay for childcare. They'll pay for your room and board, everything, just to get you into a career field. So I had 2 sons that I've adopted from foster care. And I know that if they go to college, because they were under foster care status, they are going to get a huge amount of money paid towards their education, especially in the state of Nebraska. I don't know outside of Nebraska, but if you have foster care status at any point in time for as small amount of time or a long time, after the age of 13, basically school will be paid for you. There's so many scholarships and grants out there. So ask your school about it because there's a lot of people out there that know how to get that, to know how to acquire that. But any foster care status after the age of 13, there's a lot of financial help out there for you. So if you are worried about how to pay for school, just know that there's options out there. There's a lot of websites to go to for scholarships. These are a lot of them. I will send them out to pals to have this. Scholarships.com. They've got some crazy ideas. It's all kind of a website with all this information and connections to places. I mean, there's scholarships out there that people have said, hey, I'll give somebody $500 if they have blonde hair, blue eyes, if they have two different color eyes, if they're left-handed, if they have curly hair, if they're a redhead, if they speak 3 languages. There's so many scholarships for such random ideas, and you can never have too many scholarships. You could get 500 scholarships, $100 each, and that's okay. It's all going to be paid to your school, and it just sits in your student account till you use it. So use it. If you apply for a scholarship and you're a freshman in high school, the scholarship entity will hang on to that money and send it to whatever school that you go to later on. You just have to notify them, hey, I won this scholarship. This is where it's going to go. It's never too early to start getting scholarships. Because it will just be paid when you're ready to go to school. You could also be out of high school and decide, I'm not going to go to college right now, and still get scholarships, and just when you're ready to go. Some of them have a term limit, so can't be more than 5 years. Otherwise you don't get it. But hey, if you're going to go to school eventually, try to get these scholarships. I like to tell people, what is unique about yourself? Figure out what's unique and go find a scholarship for it. Okay. I'm a twin. I'm pretty sure there's scholarships out there for being a twin. And then even narrow that down, being the oldest twin, or being the 4th out of 5 children, something like that. If you have children yourself, there's a ton of education help out there for single parents, for young parents, tons and tons of information. So scholarships.com is a great way to start. I know that SoFi and Nelnet all have some connection points on their website, so it's worth looking into to get yourself some scholarships. The Bill Gates one down here, the gatesscholarships.org, those are specific scholarships for people going into IT or tech, software development, things like that. But they give away a lot of money, and a lot of it goes unused because people just don't apply for them. On the Gates Scholarship, they have a lot of connections to other scholarship places. Like I believe the Warren Buffett has an organization that gives away a lot of money for specific degrees that you might be going into. I think his is more finance related, but there's money out there all over the place that's there for the taking. You have to usually fill out some sort of essay. There's a deadline for it, things like that. I have been told by a representative at Nelnet that if you apply for a scholarship and are denied, try again. There's nothing that says you can't keep trying for this money. So look for the scholarships in any way that you can. We went through the work study. I explained that a little bit. You get work experience. It helps pay for your educational expenses, but you still get a paycheck. It's part-time usually, but it's a federal program through the school. So the federal government is paying for these jobs. So the school is willing to hire people because they're getting the money from the federal government. So it works out for them that they get people that want to be there in this department, getting work experience, but they're not actually having to foot the bill. So these positions are out there. Limited number usually, but look for them. Ask the school that you're interested in going to if they have work study programs, because depending on your financial need, you might be eligible. You might go to the top of the list. Pell Grants, again, government provides funding for students who need help paying for college. This does not have to be repaid. You'll be eligible for the Pell Grants simply by filling out the FAFSA, which you're going to have to do anyway. So maybe one semester you get $500, maybe the next you get $2,000. It varies. Usually though, it doesn't take much to get a Pell Grant if you're under a certain income threshold, and they look at household thresholds also. So that makes a difference. Pell Grant eligibility, what they determine off that FAFSA is an expected family contribution. They look at your household income. So if you're dependent on your parents, they're going to look at what your parents make. And then they have a whole thing that says your parents should have to pay this much. If you're anything like me, my parents, FAFSA said, yes, your parents make enough to pay part of your college, but my parents couldn't. They could not pay for my college. So I wasn't eligible for Pell Grants under them, because the government was saying my parents should have been able to pay for college. So I walked away with nothing. So it actually benefited me to be married. I'm not encouraging you to get married in college. Don't hear me say that. I'm just saying for me, it worked out because then I was at a lower income threshold and I needed the money more. They look at the cost to attend your college also. So if you're at a certain income level, but your college is way up here and it's super expensive, they might give you a little bit more money. They look at your full-time or part-time status. So you'll get less if you're part-time. How long have you been there? And then studentaid.gov is where you would apply for that. Private loans. So the private loans, we talked about having government loans and private loans. Private loans are a loan from a financial institution, a state loan program, but it's non-federal. The government's not involved. You have to repay these. You could qualify for higher borrowing limits, meaning let's say school costs $20,000, but you want to take out $25,000 because you want that extra $5,000 to help you pay your rent for the semester or the year. Private loans usually allow you to do that. Those who service these loans are banks, credit unions, state loan programs, Nelnet, Navient, universities may do private loans. So some of the colleges and universities lend their own money out. It's kind of rare, but this is what we're talking about with it not being a federal loan program. So state universities may not do this, but private universities may loan money of their own, out of their own pocket for education. So that would be considered a private loan. More of the private loans, money is sent to the college. It never touches your hand. So if I take out a $20,000 private loan, they're going to send it straight to my college. For tax reasons, they can't put it in your hands. You don't want them to do that anyway. It's best to apply for federal loans first. I would highly encourage you, if you're going to take out student loans, to try to get federal loans first. Usually they're lower interest rates. The way to pay them back is way better. Like during COVID and even until January, if you have a federal loan, you don't have to pay it back. So the CARES Act put those into deferment, which means my student loans, I don't have to pay on them till January. The federal government said, we're not going to make anybody pay them back right now. My private loans, though, which I do have both, I've had to pay on them even when I didn't have to pay on my government ones or my federal ones. So it's best to apply for the federal loans. There's debt forgiveness programs through federal loans. Consolidation is easier, meaning if you take out a loan every semester, every year, at the end of that, you can put it all into one loan. So you're only making one payment versus 4, things like that. Private loans tend to have higher interest rates. Repayment plans differ. You may need a co-signer for eligibility. So for me, example, when I took out student loans, I had to get my parents to sign off on that because I was young and didn't have established credit yet. So I had to have my parents put the loan in their name. And then they have different repayment options, which are a lot harder to get through, or if something comes up, then it's harder to not pay on your loan. Federal loans, on the other hand, they give the money still straight to the college. It doesn't touch my hands. You have to complete the FAFSA first. Pell Grants may be granted, but when you go to take out the loan, they're going to look at your FAFSA. They're going to say, this is what you're eligible to take out. There's extended loan repayment terms, meaning after college. Usually when you graduate, you get an extra 6 months before you have to start paying off your loan. If you are a teacher or a doctor in certain fields, you may get some of your loans forgiven. They have income-based repayment plans, which means if you only make this amount of money, you only have to pay back this much. And as you earn more, that's when they make your payment a little bit higher. But it just helps you out, especially when you're first getting started in your career. They don't consider your credit. So basically anybody could get a federal loan. Like I said, it's a lot easier to get a federal loan, but they are a lot better. They're a lot better to deal with. The stipulations are just better. The interest rate is better. The repayment plan is better, which I would say, if you're looking at loans, the biggest thing you should ask about is interest rate in your repayment. You need to know when you have to start repaying, because if you're fresh out of college and you haven't found a job yet, and your private loan requires you to start paying payments, how are you going to afford that? So government loans usually they let you have an extra 6 months to give you a chance to look for a job. So that's really nice. A lot of private loans do that too, but it's something you should ask about before signing on the dotted line for these loans. Parent Plus loan, we went through this. These are different types. Stafford loan is a federal loan. Direct subsidized loans. We talked about this also. This is one of those that slightly better terms. The school determines how much you can borrow. So if semester costs $20,000 and the school says, yeah, sure, you could borrow the full 20, they'll let you do that. All you need is part-time status. Some loans, when they're private, you have to be a full-time student. And then there is a grace period for 6 months after graduation. So that's one of those that is helpful. Direct unsubsidized loans, no financial need requirement. So it's a little easier to get this. School determines how much you can get based off your financial aid, but you have to pay interest. So there's always an interest rate attached, just like a car loan or a mortgage. You're going to have to pay that lender back extra money for borrowing it. And unsubsidized loans means that you have to pay that back while in college. So if you've got a job that can pay that, go for it, because then you're not racking up an extra bill. But it is a lot harder when you are a full-time student to manage that in your budget. You can replace payments on deferment or forbearance. So what deferment means is if I have a payment of $200 that I can't pay this month, I can defer that. And so they put it at the end of my loan. So if I have 20 more months to pay my loan, I skip this month. Now I have 21 months. They just add it to the end of the loan. But what this means is that my interest rate is going to rack up longer. So it's not always a great thing to use a deferment. A lot of loans will only let you defer a certain amount of time. So you can't just keep doing this forever and ever. You can only do it for 6 months total, 12 months total, something like that. Forbearance means that you can't pay it. And it's not great. It's not great to use a forbearance. They often will try to maybe decrease the payment amount for that month, something like that. But forbearance is a lot harder to qualify for. Deferment just puts it at the end of the loan. But interest will accrue. So if I put my payment this month at the end of my loan, I'm going to have that much more interest that I'm paying in the long run. But unsubsidized loans allow you to do that, because let me tell you, life happens. When you're paying back your school loans, you're going to pay on them for a long time, and life happens. And sometimes we just need to skip a payment. So that's when deferment comes into play, where it's really nice. Maybe you get into a car accident, you just don't have some extra funds this month, or you have a child and you just need some extra funds, things like that, where you could put your loan at the end and not pay it for the month. So those things happen. So save it for emergencies. Don't just do it just because you want to. If you could pay it, just pay it. Always ask about repayment options. I said this, private loans cannot be forgiven. So if you have a private loan and you're in education, you're not going to get that forgiven. There is a loan program out there, which is changing. So maybe by the time you're hearing this, those of you out there that are hearing this just on YouTube, they're changing loan forgiveness programs, like from a government level, federal level. And so, but right now, if you're in the health field, human service field, or a teacher or a doctor, after a certain amount of time of paying on your loans, you can be eligible to get the rest of them paid off. So if you're in the nonprofit field for 10 years, you have worked straight through, you've always been paying on your loan. After 10 years, whatever your balance is that you owe, they'll forgive it. Private loans do not offer this option. Private loans, you have to pay back every single penny of what you owe. That's why federal loans are a little bit better. Federal loan borrowers are eligible for public service forgiveness, teacher loan, and student loan forgiveness. So there is some reasons why they forgive a student loan, just for various reasons. And then there is income-based payments. That's what I mentioned earlier. If you're only making this much, you only have to pay this much, but as your income grows, your payment will grow too. But it makes it a little bit easier on you, especially fresh out of college. There's a lot of resources out there if you're looking for student loans, scholarships, Pell Grants. All of the companies that handle student loans will have information about scholarships also. So Nelnet, I'm a big fan of them. I think they do a fantastic job with just even talking to people and educating people on their student loans or the prospect of taking out a loan. I would highly suggest using Nelnet. Navient is another one of those big companies. Right now, they have been I forget the word for this, but all the federal loans, Navient controls in a sense. I cannot think of the word, but when I pay on my student loans for the federal ones, I pay Navient. So they're the ones that are dealing with that. They're not doing that soon. So that's changing also. Sallie Mae is one of the companies. I think most of Navient took over Sallie Mae for the most part. Ascent, Education Quest, for those PALS workers out there that are trying to educate your students. Education Quest is a really good first stop. It's a nationally known website, but it's actually it's housed here in Lincoln. Fantastic people at Education Quest, full of information. They will point you to scholarships and grants and everything. You could call them, tell them the situation of your student, or if you as a student are looking into college, call Education Quest, go on their website. I found their website to be very, very educational, very easy to use. So Education Quest and Nelnet are the ones that I would highly suggest just stopping by, at least talking to them. And then there are other options. So not saying that any of them are bad, but I'm just a big fan of educating people on student loans and scholarships. And I don't think that everybody does a really good job at that, but Nelnet and Education Quest really do. So that's a lot of information. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask some questions. But if you do need anything, I can help point you in the right direction. I do have a lot of connections with places like Nelnet or Education Quest that I can direct your question to, introduce you to a person, have them answer your question. So feel free to reach out to me.